You're listening to the Wealth and Wanderlust Podcast, an international finance and personal development podcast for the modern day woman. I'm your host, Vanessa M.W, and I'm here to help you build a better life abroad or in America. You can find out more about my work in finance and travel on wanderonwards.co, or you can say hi on Instagram at wanderonwards. Not all classrooms have four walls, so open your mind to what's possible and let's get started. Hi, everyone. It's Vanessa from Wander Onwards. We are back with our podcast, Wealth and Wanderlust. This is our second guest on the series, and I couldn't be more excited to share her story, her brand, and just like what a crazy ride her life has been. If any of you have been curious about starting a business and like what it takes from the very, very highs to the very, very lows, Kerry has done it. So, Miss Kerry, will you introduce yourself, what you do, and where people can find you?
Yeah, so my name is Kerry Deliz, and I am the founder of Cash is Queen, KWEEN, and I work with women and entrepreneurs in two ways. I work with them on their digital strategies, particularly in e-commerce, and on managing their finances like a business instead of an afterthought. And where you can find me is at cashisqueen.com. My handle on Instagram is Kerry for Mayor, FORMAYOR, and all my other handles are Cash is Queen.
Could you explain to me the Kerry for Mayor? I genuinely thought you were running for office.
So long story short, it was Cash is Queen. Instagram disabled my old account, and I have had Kerry for Mayor. It was like an inside joke. Probably when I was like in high school. There was an interlude to a song and somebody replaced my name with the name that was on the song, and it was just hilarious. And you know, it's one of those you had to be there moments, and then that became like my handle forever. So yep. I'm at a crossroads where I'm like, I'm gonna have to change this to some iteration of Cash is Queen. I'm just not ready to let it go yet. And I still am not giving up hope that I might get my old account back.
Oh,
so yeah, it was like a dumb old funny joke from high school, and there's some sentiment there, and it's a little confusing, but
well, you're lucky that you had like good ideas when you were a young person. Do you know what my first AIM screen name was?
No, but I want to.
Weasel. Hard Rock Weasel. Who is she? Who let me go around town like this? But when you told me you lost your handle, like that is my worst nightmare. That is the collapse of my business, which is why I'm like branching out to TikTok, YouTube, all these other things. But what happened? Can you tell us?
You know, so I am very, I like to have very empowered conversations around money, and that can ruffle people's feathers. So me and my mentor, we were trying to figure out, I'm like, was it giving financial advice for people on OnlyFans? Was it saying be your own sugar daddy? Was it like, which variation of what and I'm like, I mean, really, this is probably the PG-13 rated version of me. Like I just talk very freely. Which, you know, I'm like, really, Instagram, like there's actual Nazis and real fuking problems on Facebook.
Problematic people.
I'm like, and I've seen like actual vaginas on Facebook. So we're literally, you know, everyone else got what I was saying, but somebody must have reported it as inappropriate. So I went to them, and yeah, it just kind of seems like it's one of those things that's just been like pending, but now it's going on 3 months. So that sucks. But I, you know, now I'm just kind of like, you know what? I think after 6 months, the disabled account becomes like a permanent thing. So the handle will become available again. So I'm like, I don't know, I made it this far, but like people are definitely like, Kerry for Mayor, are you running for office? Why isn't it Cash is Queen? I'm like, because Cash.is-Queen is not as cool. I'm like, I just want it to roll off the tongue and be easy. Whatever. It's also one of those things that like at a certain point you're like, how much is this gonna get in my way? Am I gonna like let this like hijack everything? So it definitely sucks. I do think when you have, actually I don't know, I think when you have a bigger following though, because I didn't have a huge following, but I had a very engaged following. So people looking to work together, like it was very much community oriented. So in terms of follower count, it wasn't like the biggest loss in the world. It sucked, but it wasn't the biggest thing. But you may have more of like, I don't know, like other people that you know that are in your community that also have like large followings that could maybe, I don't know, advocate for you. I've tried a couple different things short of DMing some Instagram employee on LinkedIn and being like, hey, don't you feel bad for me?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I think diversification is really the answer, because at the end of the day, like we're on borrowed platforms. So I think it's smart.
Yeah, no truer words than that. But before we get into your actual business and like how you help people become their own sugar babies or sugar daddies, is it? Did I get the phrase
Yeah,
right?
yeah, be their yeah.
Okay,
Yep,
good.
it's be your own sugar daddy so that you don't need to have a sugar daddy unless you want one. That's fine too.
Or like 4 or 5, like it's a recession. Like,
Diversification.
agreed. So tell us a little bit about how you started talking about money, because in like female groups, especially that of color, like we're not brought up talking about money, about how to save it, how to grow it, how to make it. So what started this journey of yours?
So I would say money was always like a big it wasn't something that was never talked about in my household. It was talked about in a way that like you gotta like live tight to the bone. We don't everything like literally something could be $1, $100. It was like, nope, we're not spending the
Mhm.
money on that. And my mother kind of still lives to that ethos to this day. I mean, she grew up very different than me. Like her parents grew up very poor. She grew
Mm.
up working poor, and we grew up more like working class. Um, so there was always, and you know, whenever I get like in my head about stuff, that conversation kicks up. Like, oh God, they're not enough. Is there enough for this thing? Should I buy it? And blah blah blah. So that's the battle. When I do have the battle with money, it's with that kind of conversation where I'm like, okay, am I whether it's $1 or $1,000, was I still going to be freaking out over something? So that was always a thing. And then I think it became more of like, so I, like you, wanted to go to law school.
Oh, you
And
would have been good, girl. I'm motherfucking a vet.
uh, so when I was looking at different kinds of law, I had discovered a nonprofit in Manhattan to intern with. And they were a consumer advocacy and economic justice nonprofit. She was an attorney, and I just thought she was like amazing. So I was studying for the LSAT and I interned there, and we did financial coaching. This was like back in 2008, 2009,
Oh,
but it was
wow.
like with people who really were like, you know, tight and probably, you know, eligible for like different government benefits. It was doing FAFSAs, tax preparation, things like that. And I realized that I was like, I don't even do any of this stuff for like myself.
Mm.
And then I was kind of like, I should, but whatever. And, you know, it wasn't like one of those things that I could really put two and two together. But I also realized that that was the same thing in my household, that it was like, I should just be cheap, but I'm not going to be. I'm still going to like, you know, if someone's telling me not to bite the apple, I'm still probably going to do it. So there's like all this information, but no one to like really sit you down and be like, here's how this works, here's why this is like an important thing. So I
Mm.
had like the knowledge of like spend less than you make, apply for grants and scholarships, and like it'll all, you know, I thought it would like all work out. So that was like my first bit with doing this kind of work, like sitting people down and really getting in the weeds of it. And then when I graduated, I had I had a good deal of student debt. So I'm
Mm.
glad that I didn't end up opting for law school, because
Yes.
this was at the time when it was really becoming a big conversation in like law school boards, and like speaking to, you know, just other people that were doing legal internships, how expensive law school was. And like that's to be expected, but if you weren't in like these top tier schools and going to work in like corporate finance or a certain firm, like it could really be painful. And I was interning where people were clerking and just doing, document review for hours, making like $50,000 a year with $300,000 of student loans. So it was something in me. And I also had a really cute LSAT instructor. And I was like, some part of me was like, why isn't he practicing law? Like, I just was like, I don't understand. Like, it doesn't make sense. I'm like, he's good looking, he's funny, he's smart. And like, he wants to be like a surfer and doing this for like money. And he didn't discourage everyone, but he was definitely like, make sure this is what you want. Really, really make sure it's the thing that you want. So yeah, when I graduated, I started a corporate job, and I, was doing like the things that I thought that I needed to be doing. Opting into a 401k, doing the 3% match to get the company match, like all of the customary stuff. And it always felt like not enough. So I was like, all right, I need to have like some kind of like an emergency fund, some kind of buffer of savings. The normal kind of things that you would do, nothing extraordinary.
Well, you say normal, but I get so many DMs like, should I really be sacrificing the 3%? Yeah, or even the emergency fund. It's like these people or not these people. It's like normal people have never heard of these main terms. They just kind of know that they should have some money in the bank just in case. And especially with like Dave Ramsey's like $1,000 emergency fund.
Yes, you're right. You're right. I think it was, and it did take me a couple of months before I opted into the 401k, because I'm like, oh, I'm trying to like pay my loans off. I have this to do. I have that to do. So I guess I did like the customary things that I saw people doing, or that I like read anecdotally in books, like Susie Orman or whatever book I had read. I think that was the first like finance book that I read, was like Young, Broke, and Fabulous. And I was like, that's totally me. I was like, every time I'd be out to dinner or something, I'm like, oh my God, I probably am like the brokest person here, and I shouldn't be going out to eat. I shouldn't be doing that, like that whole bit. And then, once I started figuring out that like I wasn't doing so terrible. I was doing like okay for where I was at. I had paid off my car. My loans, I was chipping away at them really slowly, but I was like, oh, I'll just have them forever. I'll pay them forever. No big deal. That's what everyone does. That's how I kind of had it. And I started cranking up like 1% of my 401k and doing those kind of things. So in 2014, I had met my now husband in 2013, and we were working on him coming to the US.
Where's he from again?
So he's from Amsterdam. Yeah, he's from the Netherlands.
He is.
So yeah, we were figuring that out, and we worked together, and it was going to be our first time living together. So I was like, I'm going to find another job, or take some time, maybe 2 or 3 months, to like do some training and classes, and then find another job. So
were you leaving because of him? And like, you guys didn't want to shit where you eat?
We didn't want to work together and live together. So we did 6 months of him living in New York, and I was living in DC. And then it just like, I hadn't found a job, and I was like, he moved all the way, like he didn't move here to date me forever. Like he moved here because things are getting kind of serious. So we just were like, let's do, let me move up there and we'll figure it out. So I was like, I'm going to get like 6 months of an emergency fund. I'm going to crank it way up on my 401k, all the things. He and I had not talked about money up until this point. Like we just, it was like, whatever.
Yeah. Why would you?
Yeah, exactly. Not like he moved across the world. So, and this is the funny thing, Vanessa, about money, is that I was like, on paper, I was doing the right things, right? And I had like this plan to do things the right way. And when I left my job, we moved in together, and I'm like, okay, we'll like split everything, which was also something that I remember reading in Susie Orman's book. It was like, you don't split things 50-50. It has to be like in an equitable way. But I just was like, I can't have anyone paying for my I don't need that. I'm good. I'm, all those things, until I got a letter from the IRS that I was under audit for over $10,000.
Quick commercial break. Want to manage your money better? Check out my Beginner's Budget Dashboard. It's an easy-to-use digital tool that helped me economize my lifestyle easily so I could invest over $20,000 in 2020 alone. Check out the link in the description.
And
So
was this from like side hustle money or from your normal income?
I wasn't even side hustling at the time. This was from a relocation bonus, and the relocation bonus, they put the sum of your relocation, and basically it looked like I got a bonus of like $100,000, which I did not. That was the total sum of the benefits of like the corporate housing, the moving costs. I don't know how it came out to $100,000, but you know how corporate spending goes. Like I have no idea how it would come out to such a high amount. So it was totally just the way that it was done. Just to spoiler alert, my accountant was correct. I did not end up owing the money, but that took 2 years for that of disputing with the IRS. So he stuck with that. So I'm bouncing around a lot, but long story short, I would have had things covered for like my expenses for me to be able to contribute to our household and not have a job. But then I had this come up. So this is what I talk about a lot with my clients. Like we're constantly playing whack-a-mole with our money. Yep. Like you get one thing under control and something else pops up. So what we're doing with all these things that we talk about on Instagram is like building, like a fortress around ourselves of like shielding all the shit that could happen. Mm-hmm. So that obviously, I freaked the fuck out. And I was like, I have to tell Isaac, like, and now that we lived, like, I'm going to have to tell him that I have a substantial amount of student loans, like to the tune of like over $50,000. And
chump change, please, girl.
Well, I know it's gotten more expensive and I have a couple years on you. So. But it was, like that was the come to Jesus moment. And, it wasn't anything that I tried to hide. It was just like, I was like, I'll take care of it. I don't need to have him figure it out for me. Yeah. So he was more shocked that like this, he's like, you see these things on TV and hear about them, but like, what's up with America? Like, why did you need
the Europeans?
Emergency? He's like, why did you need an emergency fund? I'm like, in case I lose my job. He's like, what about unemployment? I'm like, well, I left on my own. He's like, it's weird here. He's just like, it's fucked up.
Yeah. The Europeans don't understand. So for any of you joining us as a new individual, like I live in Germany. I'm currently based in mainland Europe. So during the Corona crisis, we've had the government support workers by giving them anywhere from like 70% of their income down for staying home and for being safe, and to give companies an opportunity to save cash and not have to spend it on salaries right now while we're in this crisis. It boggles me that I thought it was ever normal for America to just like let people be homeless, let children go hungry. That's crazy. That doesn't happen here. Like the government has a responsibility, because I also pay like 42% tax. Okay, I'm an immigrant doing that. And I'm happy to pay for it, knowing that there are these like basic safety nets in place.
Yes. So that was an eye opener for both of us, right? Because I also was like, do you have a pension? And he's like, kind of, but it doesn't work the same way. It's like something that you pay into and then you have a company option. So it was great. It was great at the end of the day for both of us, because I was like, I'm a hot mess. I don't even like, I'm going to ruin his life. And then I was like, we're both like our own sort of hot mess since he moved to the US. So we might as well figure this out together. So we made a game plan that I would like tackle my debt. I started freelancing because I was like, I just can't blow through, what I saved up just to like, I was like, hell no. I like seeing that money in my bank account. I'm like, I got to figure that out. And I went really hard at the debt. And he was like, look, I will cover these expenses. And I'm like, okay, cool. We'll do this for like a year or however long it took. It took a little bit under a year. But what it trained us for was for like the past 4 years where we still live that same way. But instead of it going to debt, it now goes to our investments, business. And it has worked out really well because we have that muscle trained where it wasn't like, yay, dual income, no kids, kind of like, let's go spend all our money. So it did work out in the end. And it was a great lesson for both of us because I thought that I really knew a good amount about money. And I think for like the maybe slightly above average American, I did. But then it opened up this whole new world to me where I discovered like, the FIRE movement and saving most of your income and like figuring out all these hacks to get rid of all these costs that we are like, oh, it's just always going to be like that. Like we're always going to have our loans. You're always going to have to borrow money and all of these scripts that we've been like, I don't want to sound conspiratorial, but like programmed with that are just like
for sure. The way that the world is set up is against the middle class because we pay the majority of the taxes and we get the least amount of support. So anytime we can utilize certain levers that will allow us to pay what we appropriately owe and continue to build generational wealth, like let's do it. Let's absolutely go hammer with it. And also, I would love to revisit your original statement of it's not always 50-50 because this is contentious. And I think I'm of the same opinion as you. Why would I pay 50% of everything if I'm earning at a lower rate significantly to my male partner, my female partner, whoever my partner is? Because at the end of the day, it kind of reduces your ability to build generational wealth for yourself. So how did you come to Jesus on that?
He was like, that's ridiculous. He's like, you have no job. Like he was like, so that's stupid. Also I had read Susie Orman's book. And then my mom is really like, before I was married or even in a long-term relationship, you have, again, things tied that it's like, it's 50-50. And my mom's like, I wish a motherfucker would, when I'm on 1%, tell me that they need to be my 99. Like, she's like, it doesn't work. Sometimes we're both going to be depleted at 0. And like the propping each other up and, lifting each other up, that's not marriage. Like, it's not. Sometimes it will be that. Other times you're just like, I need my space and you need yours. And like, I honor that and cool. The 50-50 thing is a fucking myth. And yeah, to your point, like you want it to be at scale. So there's not like a rub there. Where you're like, hey, I'm breaking my ass to like meet you halfway, or they don't want to feel like, hey, I'm at this earning level and I have to like live in a smaller apartment or whatever the thing is. So I definitely think, again, like people have so many fucking fixed ideas about marriage. Marriage is hard as shit and it's individual to like you and your partner. And I remember when my mom, when I would comment on her and my stepfather's marriage, she's like, stay out of my marriage. Like, she's like, well, I'm open to a lot of conversations between you and I, but like, stay out of my marriage. And I'm like, you know what? She was right. Like, it is between you guys, as long as you're not causing each other like physical or mental harm. It's no one's business, really. So I think, there's a lot of that societal poison that we have in our head that like things are 50-50 and be independent, but not too independent and be this and growth is linear. I'm like, no, it's not. It's fucking not. Like I would say definitely my biggest, like our biggest year financially and like move and like level up was probably last year. And then this year it has been more like what pieces were missing last year that we could fill in to have a more stable foundation to like catapult. And I'm fine with that. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't want to go backwards. Like sometimes you're going to go backwards. Like everything, not just the up and up.
No, because you're responding to not only whatever is happening in your like four square walls, but also what's happening in the rest of the world. Like we are in a global pandemic, people. And I know that your husband also works in the travel industry. So like our necks are on the chopping block 24/7. So our financial plans need to reflect that difference. For anyone who wants to have a conversation with their partner about money to change the way that the household is currently managed, what advice would you give them?
So I would say create with each other what kind of context you want to, or what kind of culture you want in your household. Because if not, a culture will be created on its own. It's just like company
Mm,
culture, right? It is
mm-hmm.
like if you have people that are just disengaged at all, it's like a pandemic, right? So think about what kind of culture would you want to create in your marriage. I don't have a template for it. I tell people all the time, I'm like, I hope you're not coming to me for advice, but more for insight, thoughtfulness, information that I could like give you information. But at the end of the day, you've got to create your own, sort
Mm-hmm.
of like, what kind of boundaries does it have? Is it going to be this 50-50 thing? Are you like, no, I'm not down with that. And I'm going to trust myself with my partner to have whatever it is that we want turn out. And if there is aggressive financial goals, track them,
Yep.
because numbers don't lie and our brains like trick us. So like humans do, not in like a malicious way. I think we just are like, oh, of course I'm on track for that, I think.
Mm,
So, you know, track things, and definitely goal setting. Goal setting, I think, in a marriage is something that I didn't witness, my parents doing. And I'm like, it's something so simple and profound, but like most people don't do it,
mm.
married or not.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually created my own dashboard, which is now on sale on Etsy. And this is how I actually manage my money because I'm a visual person. I need to see those little bars going up for me to recognize that I am putting in work and making changes that are creating real financial gains. So we have our joint spreadsheet, but I also have my spreadsheet so I can say, this was because of me. This is the value I brought to this household in a monetary number. And I'm fucking proud of it. I did
Yes.
that.
Yep.
Like that's crazy to me because I've been historically broke like all my life and I've always been like bad about with
I
money.
can't even picture that. I can't picture that
Really?
at all. No,
What?
well, my experience of you is very, very pulled together.
I was literally in tears yesterday morning because I had German class in the morning and I couldn't conjugate things as well as my other classmates. And I was just sitting there in tears on Skype, being like, I'm so much worse than everyone here. Like, I'm a fraud, blah, blah, blah. And my husband's like, you run two businesses and work full time at the same time. And I was like, yeah, but I don't know what the dative is for this. This is how our brain like tricks us into believing that we are less than or we can't do something, which is why I track everything. So when I feel bad, I look at my numbers and I was like, the bitch did it. That's what I
And
did.
you know what? Scientifically, so the book that I was talking about in our group chat, the Think and Grow Rich, she is a physicist. And because there's a lot of bullshit on Instagram and Pinterest about money mindset. And there's also a lot of really great information too. I think what we get fed, given the nature of our work, is like manifest it, light a candle. And I'm like, okay, like we're not doing this. But this book is all like even if you are flat broke, one of the first exercises that you do is to track everything that comes in. So I'm talking like if you have a coupon for 50 cents, if you have a refund that you were given, if you find $2 in the street, if you call your bank and they refund bank fee, whatever the thing is, if someone gives you a t-shirt that's worth $10, whatever it is like document everything for 30 days. Because so much of the stuff that we're on autopilot, where we have our default settings that we go to where we're like, not enough money, not pretty enough, not skinny enough, not this enough, not that enough. So that's actually a very smart exercise, the spreadsheet. And we have we have our spreadsheet as well. And then I have one on my website. If people are like, well, I don't have any money to track, I'm like, track your mood. Are you, is it when you put in your mood compared to your effort, like what is the outcome for you? Because you could start to see like what kind of day did you have that gave you a 1 versus a day that you had that gave you a 5, and how can we lean further into the 5s?
Absolutely. And I see this with my clients as well. So I have one client, she has smashed thousands of pounds worth of debt. She is on her way to buying a house by herself in London. But the second we talk about having one no spend day, she stops and like closes up and like just can't even imagine it. She's like, in no way or possibility can I spend 24 hours not spending money. And I asked her, like, why? Like, let's look at your expenses. You're kind of doing this already if you weren't paying to take a cab to work, but you're so close. You're dollars away. What is this emotional blockage that you have that then leads you to spend a whole bunch of money on Taobao, which is the Chinese version, because you're like, oh, I cheated on my diet, so I'm just gonna fuck it all up.
Yeah. And I think that's like the thought of a no spend day, I'm like, no, but then I'll look at my account and I'm like, I have probably 7 to 8 a month on my just on my own accord. And I think that comes from like that habit creation of just, if I have food in the house and it's like delicious stuff that I want to eat, I'm probably not going to spend the money. So it's like, how do I set my life up in a way that those things are possible and it doesn't feel like a no spend day? And then I have what I call like my stop, drop, and roll. Like when I want to impulse shop, what is the thing? What's triggering me? Do I want it? Do I need it? So I think there's so many different ways that you could go about training your brain. But yeah, I know for a lot of people, the budgeting and no spending feels like being on a diet, and it's just like too restrictive. And I think it's figuring out like what works for you. So I tell people, you're going to have to try on a lot of stuff and a lot of it won't work. Like it's, whether you work with a coach, whatever you're working with, it's a testing sort of testing out what works for you and what you could still hit your goals with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the testing part is so important because not one coach or one methodology is going to work for you. You need to see what allows you to thrive. And I also have a little bit of a qualm with people like second guessing financial coaches because they'll pay some Instagrammer on like whatever social media to show them how to do a crunch. But like, you have monetary goals that you can hit and see that growth, but you're not willing to dedicate the same amount of resources to that. That's just like a personal thing that I feel about it. Do you feel any certain way about it?
I feel the same way. I mean, that's also why, it's funny. Like I said, with my former Instagram, I felt that I was really getting into having like a community, and that's what I want to create, so that there is always free resources on my site, a free community for you to reach out to, lower cost, lower ticket items inside of my product suite, because working with me, it is an investment. It is. And I, 5-6 years ago, when we first were getting all of our finances together, I paid someone to because my nose was up too close against it to be able to be like, oh, wow, we're actually, we had the habit of saving, but we were putting it in a savings account instead of investing it. Cause I was like, oh, do entrepreneurs have 401ks? Like, I didn't know how all of that worked. So I think it's definitely like a worthy investment, because it's also not something that you need forever. But I know there's all these like qualms, right, with trying to like survive inside of capitalism, but also be like, I want to be rich. Like, I don't want to be disgusting and a terrible person rich, but I like money. Like I do. And if if we have it wired that like everyone who has money is going to be terrible, like we don't want to be terrible. So how would we be able, how do you find this balance? So I think it's like talking about certain things. Like, yes, I don't want to be nesting doll, Salvador Dali rich, but I do want to have like some money. And and when you work for yourself, it's all your healthcare, your taxes, like all of your stuff. So those are costs incurred. And I give all to my clients.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I hear you 100%, but I think it's also, most people shouldn't be for you, right? Like who's for you is going to be a small niche group who gets it.
Absolutely. And I think that's enough as well. Like you don't need to be everything to everyone. Just like your personality wouldn't be everything to everyone, neither should your business. Otherwise, you're not doing it right. Who are you reaching if you reach everyone?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so we will wrap up today's episode. I loved all the conversation about money and relationships. I think it's something we don't really visit a lot because we're so focused on here are the levers that we can move to like save tax and make sound finance advice or investment advice. But thank you so much for opening up about your personal life and your money journey. Where can everyone find you?
So you can find me at cashesqueen.com, cash, CASHISKWEEN.com, and on Instagram, Kerry for Mayor. So KERRYFORMAYOR. And my name is Kerry Deliz. So if you Google me, pull up my LinkedIn, my website.
Yep. And I'll definitely link all of this below in the YouTube section and also in the podcast notes. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely feature you on the main Instagram, on the TikToks, all the social medias. And really, truly, Kerry, it's been such an amazing journey with you in just the few short weeks that we've known each other to put together the Side Hustle Summit. I am so impressed with you. I think you're such a firecracker. I can't wait to see what else you do. Absolutely. Okay, great. Have a wonderful night.
Want to win a free finance-related digital product valued anywhere from $15 to $300? Just subscribe and leave a review on iTunes with your name. I'll announce the winner each month on the podcast, and you can DM me on Instagram to claim your prize. Thanks for supporting the channel, and I'll see you next week.